Coach Helfrich.
All right, good afternoon. Yeah, just kind of run down and do a little blurb on each guy, and then take questions. Do you guys have is it JC first, and then everybody by alphabetical order after that? Okay. Dominic Harrison is a kid that's already on campus. Really fast, physical, great transition, back pedal, lateral movement to full speed is excellent. Coached by Alonzo Carter at Contra Costa College, a guy that has been an East Bay high school coach for a long time, a guy that a ton of us have known for a long time. Really likes this kid and has already, during this time when we can't be with our guys and watch them do one-on-one and 7-on-7, he's a guy that has already made guys like Marcus and a couple of the guys come up to us and say, hey, wait until you see this guy. So really, really excited about him. Telly Lucy, Hana Telly Lucy is another junior college player from CSM in the west side of the San Francisco Bay Area. Brett Pollock and Tim Tullock, kind of guys that have coached again there for a long time, along with Larry Owens, guys that have produced a ton of players, and just love Telly's everything. His feet, his finish. He's passing game, run game, a very polished guy, a physical guy, somebody who should come in spring practice and be an immediate high, at least put things in a highly competitive situation for a couple of open spots there, and really like just his presence. Ditto for Tui Talia, same kind of thing on the defensive line from DVC, Diablo Valley College, which I think is in Pleasant Hill, California, East Bay. Mike Darr, the coach there, again, a place that's had a bunch of guys, is a guy that just keeps growing and growing. He weighed in at 270 on his trip, but the last time we saw him, he looks great, as put on some more weight, and will be a guy potentially, certainly as a defensive end, but maybe even inside at nose, moving around as our defensive line development and depth got a lot better today. One transfer I know we put on there was Johnny Reagan. Was coming from Cal, had the 1 year sabbatical to Cal, and then we'll be back and have to sit a year. Another kid that's already on campus and done a really nice job by all accounts of working hard and just his athleticism, desire, and everything that we liked about him last year has shown up. A really, really good looking kid. I think has the potential to play all four linebacker spots for us when all is said and done, but we'll see. And then on to the high school guys. Jalen Brown is an early enrollee kid from Mountain Point. I think is a guy that's typical of this class. A great kid from a great family that was a captain of his team, with only 3 exceptions. Every other guy in this class was a team captain. Something that you can look for, at least a demonstrated kind of leadership deal. He happened to play on an undefeated state championship team at Mountain Point in kind of the South Phoenix area. Gatorade Player of the Year in Arizona. Really physical receiver, can really go up and get the ball with high, strong hands. And there's another guy, much like Harrison, I was talking about earlier, is a guy that people just walk around the building. Hey, wait till you see this kid. Wait till you see this kid. And he's a hard worker, neat kid. Tanner Carew from Damien High School. Hopefully you never have to know his name too much. Being a long snapper, just do your job and get out of the way. But a great kid. Reminds me a lot of Drew Howell, just how he carries himself. Always has a smile on his face. Another great family. One of the many places where home visits we ate very well this recruiting season. Parents are just tremendous people. He was the greatest long snapper in the history of the world, according to Chris Rubio, who's kind of the national kicking and snapping guru these days. Tyrell Crosby from Green Valley High School in it's called Henderson, Las Vegas area, Henderson, Nevada. A guy that was a 3-sport captain, football, basketball, and track. Coach Greatwood and I had the chance the other day sitting with his high school coach, Brian Castro, to watch him play basketball, and had some dunks. I would like to petition the state of Nevada to instill the shot clock, because the other team went with the 4 corners, which I haven't seen that in so long. So they went it was like old school Phil Ford, North Carolina, 4 corners basketball. And He had some dunks. He's a guy with great urgency, power. I think has just a young body that really has a chance to grow into exactly what we want, a big, fast, physical, versatile guy up front. Braden Egert, same thing, even bigger at this stage. We measured him at 6'7", I believe, is about just over 300 pounds, 305 on his visit, and is just enormous. As a guy that played both sides of the ball, offensively and defensively in high school, ran some guys down from behind. Same high school as John Boyette. Troy Mott was his high school coach. I think this guy, just with 1 year of development, strength conditioning, really getting in the shape of how we practice and how we do things, I think this guy's gonna explode. Royce Freeman, unbelievable, great kid, great family, great player, team captain, broke Reggie Bush and Ricky Williams all-time section rushing records. Great hands, great smile. Just love everything about this guy. He's a guy that's been committed to us for a long time, and we fought off a ton of people that were beating down his door. And he'd call me periodically, and you always get a little worried and look down at the number and go, okay, great, here we go. And it was like, hey, coach, when do we have to turn in our essay for our application for admission? Or so it was always a great question about something that he was kind of ahead of a bunch of deadlines, and just again, just a great kid who's fast, physical. A lot of people are comparing him to Jonathan Stewart, and so we'll see, but really a prototypical big back type of guy. Dominic Harrison we talked about. Justin Hollins from Arlington Martin, same high school as the Amoko twins. This guy is probably more about 230-ish now. He's at least high 220s, 230. He's going to end up being something. I don't, from a positional standpoint, outside backer, maybe move down to DN just as when he grows up. But again, a fast, physical, neat kid, great family. Parents are really neat people that. Again, I know I've said that already a few times, but every time we walked out of a home visit with the guys in this class, we all just kind of looked at each other and we're like, "Yep, that's our guy. That's these are our kind of people," and that's something that matters in a big way. He was a sub 10.8 electronic 100 meters, that big and that fast. We'll see what that turns into. Glenn Iannacho, two of his brothers, Duke Iannacho plays for the starting safety for the Denver Broncos, and his other brother they both played at San Jose State, and his other brother played in the NFL for a couple years. Just a great pedigree, really neat kid. Reminds me of a kind of a young Efo, just in his temperament, very quiet, humble kid who can bring it. Is a physical guy. He's not the biggest guy on the field, but he'll hit you. He's got great ball skills. A lot of people are recruiting him as an offensive player, which again is kind of pervasive through this list. There's a lot of guys that are recruited by other people on either or both sides of the ball. And Scott Altenberg and J. Sarah High School down there is one of the best schools in Southern California. He was the captain of that team that lost to Chaminade, I think. Don't quote me on that. In the championship game down there, but really excited about Glenn. Tony James from Gainesville, Florida. He might be the fastest guy. That's a stretch, but he was definitely the fastest guy. He was the first letter of intent in this morning. So at 4:44 Pacific, we got his NLI in, and a guy just again a great versatile something. Tailback, slot, receiver, returner. A couple people were trying to recruit him as a DB. He's a sub 10.5 electronic 100-meter guy as well. Robert Johnson has been already talking about a few of these guys, which we're all for. As long as all these guys handle their business academically, they'll be hopefully two sport guys for us. Battled down to the bitter end with a few people on Tony, and he was strong the whole time and committed. Very excited about him as well. Who's next? Jalen Jelks, another big versatile athlete. Jalen's probably, I think, north of 260 right now. He's playing in another one of those all-star games this week in Dallas. He's probably over 6'6", and just a great-looking kid. Again, will sort itself out of how much weight he's able to put on and carry and still be productive of being an end or a nose or a movement guy up front. Really long-armed kid, great desire. Again, was a team captain as well of his squad. Dan Hines at Desert Vista has been a great program. They didn't have a great year this year, but I'm sure they'll bounce back. Morgan Mahalik, quarterback from Marin Catholic, just north of San Francisco Bay Area, is a kid we initially saw when we were going to evaluate another guy. I was joking earlier that we're never going to recruit a guy that has started before his senior year, so we're going to recruit him and Marcus and a couple of the guys like that. But Morgan's a tough, competitive, great look in his eye, charismatic leader who can run, who can throw. He's got a great tight release, really good decision maker. Has already shown a bunch of leadership just in talking and recruiting this class. Has been a real leader on the recruiting front, from whether it's camps or the opening or all the things that these guys kind of cross over with, in addition to social media. Austin Malawata, a guy who, according to some internet reports, weighs 212 pounds, somewhere between 212 and maybe 410. But Austin weighed in. He didn't weigh 6'1" and 7/8 or 5/8. We rounded to 6'2", cheating, and 291 on his visit. And as a kid that literally came to the United States last April, and when he moved here, I think he weighed about 238. He went to a camp in our conference and committed to that school. Just kept growing and growing and growing, and is now 291 and can still run. He's explosive. Plays for one of the best programs in the country in Corona Centennial. Matt Logan, who's put out hundreds of guys. He's a guy that we've known and trusted for a long time, and we're really excited about this guy again for his depth that he can provide inside, and just a really naturally explosive physical guy. Matrell McGraw, another guy that we battled down through this morning, but he's been rock solid, committed for a long time. Out of Curtis High School, just north of New Orleans, was the captain of the state championship team there. I think JT Curtis, the coach there, I think they've won 26. He's won either 26 or 28 state championships, so they've had a few guys. Obviously, he was a bunch of those guys were featured today, picking their schools. But the highlight of Matrell's recruitment was his grandma's jambalaya, no question about it. Greatest jambalaya in history. Henry Mondu from Portland, kind of a la Taylor Hart-ish, a versatile big man that will figure out where he wants to play. He's kind of gone back and forth of wanting to play offense, wanting to play defense, and we'll let those guys pick it early on, as we always do. Was the state champion or the state runner-up in the state of Oregon, and again, just love this kid. Great family, great character. A bunch of things that again are qualities of a lot of the guys in this class, including the next guy on there, Charles Nelson, from Seabreeze, Florida, in Daytona Beach. Mark Beach, the head coach there, has had a ton of guys. This guy again is a multi-sport freak, unbelievable speed, change of direction, returner. And some people are recruiting this guy as a defensive back. He's a sub 10.5 electronic 100 meters. He's over 24-foot long jump. He's over 46-inch triple jump. Had a knee injury his junior year, and then just came back better than ever as a senior. When he committed to us, there was another team in our conference that had 8 coaches in his school the next morning. And he goes, "Coach, I just sat there and nodded for an hour and a half." He was just like, But stayed strong and committed to us, and a really mature guy that has a chance to have an immediate impact. Khalil Oliver from Rocky Mountain High School, just outside of Boise, Idaho. Scott Kreiner was the coach. Scott Kreiner's been a college football coach, high school coach for a long time, very successful guy. They lost to probably the other really good program in the state of Idaho, Highland, in Pocatello in the state championship, or the semifinals, one of those two, somewhere deep in the playoffs. He was the captain of that team for 2 years, and Khalil's, again, a really mature kid, fun guy to be around, great look in his eye, wants to be a doctor, just a very goal-oriented, really humble kid off the field, and a great competitive desire on the field. Next. Arion Springs, Another guy, I was just joking a second ago, I think he's going to take another official visit this afternoon just to solidify things. But he really has been, as far as our dealings, rock solid. And on all of his visits that he took was recruiting, for us. A dynamic guy, battled right down to the end with him, with some other people on the outside, but he was rock solid to us the whole time. From San Antonio, he said he was trying to get some duck gear last night, but all the Duck fans bought out San Antonio duck gear, he said. But so that's a good problem, and very excited about Arion. Again, not the biggest guy on the field, but a physical dude, and then off the field, very very quiet, humble type of guy. Jimmy Swain, just Olathe North in Kansas. Again, just a great kid. Big, versatile guy, 6'3", 230-ish, something. He'll be an outside backer for us, potential to play inside. I think he can help out immediately, has potential to help out immediately in a lot of ways, special teams or defensively. Just a high character guy, really a neat story, that this whole kid's background. And mom, fantastic, great wings at her house, great chicken, and just really sewing it up. He's the last guy of again a bunch of our kind of guys. So with that, questions.
Raise your hand. We'll get the microphone there.
Thanks. Just major priorities you felt like going into this cycle, and how you felt like you addressed those.
The only thing, if we were going to sit here today and have any, one thing that, if we had our druthers, which I don't know what a druther is, but one more big guy, offensively or defensively. We had a few guys that we had targeted that for whatever reason either didn't work out from our end or didn't work out from their end, and then we had a bunch of other guys that we just didn't end up recruiting, and we'll kind of pocket that and go forward. But other than that, I thought, our defensive line, I think we addressed that really well. The other guy that's going to make a huge impact is TJ Daniel, moving him from offense to defense. He had an outstanding fall and redshirt year. And then the other big need, obviously, was defensive back, which I think we addressed that really well.
Rick Morgan, inside.
Last year with the change and transition, as you took over the program, the recruiting was kind of catch as catch can. How did it go this year as far as organization? Did you change anything? Just speak to the process a little bit under your first year under full control.
There's a few changes. I think just more of logistically and from an overall plan of things, we changed slightly. Our guys were in over 1,000 high schools in 31 states over the last year, and that's a ton of miles. And we tried to line that up and orchestrate that in as most efficient and kind of a manner as possible, because you're trying to target. You'd like to target candidate A for every position, but candidate A might be in Florida, and then there might be somebody else in Kansas, there might be somebody else in Arizona, and just try orchestrating all that as best as possible. I thought our guys did really well. Jim Fisher, who kind of orchestrates our in-house logistics recruiting wise, did a tremendous job, and we'll find out here in a couple of years.
AJ.
Coach, you touched on this a bit already, but obviously very important how this class addressed needs. How would you assess this class as addressing your needs, and are there any needs that you still maybe want to fill in this class?
The only thing, and again, it's not something that we're losing sleep over, is just, like I said, one more big guy, and on either side of the ball would be the only thing that we if we had the perfect guy that would have filled that role, we would have taken him and had a couple chances to do that. But the thing that you don't want to do at the end is stretch for a guy that doesn't fit for whatever reason. And there's a couple things on the horizon that may or may not happen, and we'll go from there. But I think all in all, we actually got one more guy than I think we all thought we were going to get about a week ago, and all things considered, we're really happy.
Jake Zivin.
You mentioned with a lot of these guys character and high character. Where do you guys prioritize that in, I guess, relation to talent? And can you point to a few guys maybe in the past in this program who have been high character guys that you think have maybe come in with less physical ability, but that high character has made them a better college player by the end of their career?
Yeah, I think that there's basically one thing that we've added is we have basically an 8-step process, 8 criteria that have nothing to do with football. And that's where we try to, as best as possible, the thing that we always talk about is manage the knowns. Manage as many knowns as we, because the 5-star, all-world player is at best in college football a little worse than a coin flip that guy's really going to be a player. That's just the proven science of it. And so the more of that coin flip you can lean to your direction up front of all the things that you can try to find out that we're allowed to find out, we try to manage those as best as possible without exception. And I mean, there's a bunch. Michael Clay was the first guy that popped in my mind, who was an undersized guy that a lot of people didn't recruit. Kenyon Barner. There's a bunch of guys. Hronis Gross, who wasn't very heavily recruited. Lots. Sorry.
Matt, Prim.
Any feedback on this building that we're in right now from the recruits and how it maybe impacted their recruitment with you?
It's been huge, and I think, as I said at the beginning, I think it's more of just the overall commitment. The commitment to the overall student athlete experience. And what we tell our guys when we recruit them is we are going to work unconventionally, very unconventionally, and we're going to support you unconventionally. We have a lot of great stuff around here, a lot of shiny, great, neat things, but the people that those guys are around on a daily basis is what matters the most. And distance is still the biggest factor that we have to overcome. And it's still, if you ask around the country, that's the number one factor of why a guy chooses a place. Distance number one and winning number two. But we have to overcome some of that, and we will, and we do, and I think that unconventional support and the commitment to those guys, the commitment of being part of a great university in a great place to live, results in getting guys from Florida and Louisiana and wherever else that these were highly recruited guys, but more importantly, they're our guys. They're our kind of guys that. It takes that much more to fly over that many more schools, and that's for us, it's a great deal.
Gary Horowitz.
Mark, along those lines, when you recruit these players they end up signing here, how much does the success of the program in recent years, the BCS games, playing in Rose Bowls, that kind of thing, does that come out a lot in conversation?
Huge. It certainly gets you in the door. I think like we've talked about in the past, it was the uniforms and the helmets and the flash and the deal. And then that might start the conversation, but now it's the degree and the sports marketing program and the commitment to the student athlete that matters a lot. And oh, by the way, we've won a ton of games, and more than any other Pac-10, Pac-12 program in the last 25 years. And so those things hand in hand again help us to overcome some of the perceived obstacles.
Jerry Thompson.
Yes, Coach, can you comment on whether Tony James you think will be physically ready? I mean, I've heard some of the things that has happened to him, and then also on Egert. Is it Egert?
Egert, yep.
You're mentioning, seemed like he's a pretty good defensive player too. Is there any possibility of him maybe, or is you just pretty well set on him being on offense?
I'll go in the order you asked him. Tony James, we don't anticipate any issue. Yeah, he had a minor setback that he's already a couple weeks ahead of that we're on top of from a medical standpoint. And then Egert, Braden I think sees himself as more of an offensive player right now, but anything can happen.
Andrew Greif.
You talked about Springs taking some other visits. In the past, I've seen that ship staff, he wouldn't, when Sky committed, he wouldn't let them go anywhere else. What goes into that change for you as a head coach to let a guy go look elsewhere, even though he said to you, "Hey, I want to go here"? And then are there any other changes you made that you allow a recruit to do that was perhaps different?
On the last part, I don't know. And the other portion, I think, is completely individualized. We had a lot of conversations. He and John Neal had a lot of conversations, and at no time did we lose sleep. I lost some hair, but it wasn't due to him.
Sean Shoppy.
When you look at the list and you think about opportunity upcoming season as far as people maybe that have left the team, etc., obviously anything can happen in the camps and whatnot, but when you look at the list and you look at their size and skill set right now, which are the names that you would say these guys kind of have a chance of maybe making appearances in the starting lineup?
Well, I think certainly the junior college guys, when you're recruiting junior college guys, there's obviously a need at that position. And I think all those guys are physically, mentally, and psychologically close. But we'll find out. And then as for the rest of them, we'll never limit a guy or preordain a guy that they're gonna be the man. And there's a ton of great football players on that list, a ton of competitive guys. And we'll find out. I don't think we sat here last year and said I guarantee Johnny Munt's going to make a huge difference. Or this guy or this guy or this guy. And by the same token, we probably have lost a few bets in the last few years on this guy's going to redshirt and go into a great career. So we'll find out. That'll all play out.
Stephen Alexander.
Sort of similar to the BCS success that you've had. Was there any effect of not making a BCS game this year?
Not that I'm aware of. No.
Matt.
You talked about distance. How do you balance recruiting on a national level, but also staying to your local states, the areas in your region?
That's the $1 million question, because you're in on some guys maybe that you've never been in on before, recruiting against some people that traditionally, we would lose to, but that's the great question, because you're trying to take a guy that's maybe 2 clicks better than the next guy, but this next guy is in Northern California or something, or whatever it is. But we just that's where we really try to get to know these guys and find the guy that is willing to go, that's willing to fly across the country. It's a small country, really, when you think about it. And every game's on TV. All those things that go into making this a smaller world. There's some guys that are willing to do that, and some guys, there's already 2015 guys that guys are in Florida that are, absolutely willing to come this far, and there's guys in California and some other state that aren't. That's just it's kind of just getting to know them as much as possible.
Austin Meek.
Mark, what was your stress level this morning? Did you wake up knowing basically exactly what you had, or were there a couple you were watching right down to the wire?
It's funny, somebody asked me that same question. I don't know. I know that the guys that we got, we love. And we tried to manage the knowns on those guys as much as possible. And we've had 5-star guys that weren't any good. We've had 5-star guys that were spectacular. We've had no-star guys that were All-Americans. We've had no-star guys that, weren't very good. And so it's a great day for a lot of people to that have created an incredible niche, business in this deal, and that's great. And then by the same token, let's go to spring ball and let's go to fall camp and see who shows up and see how it plays out.
Coach, just coming back to this question about distance, are you saying that distance is a bigger factor than the recruit's relationship with a coach or his position coach?
I am saying that. Well, that's according to recruiting science, I guess. And there's a oxymoron, but just when guys are pulled, when college football players are pulled, the number one factor in their decision making is distance, and then I think second is winning, and then it gets a little more parceled out from there, but that's kind of just what those guys say is their number one decision making factor.
McGraw went on TV this morning and spoke of Coach Neal very highly. I call him a great defensive backs coach. Seemed to be a high endorsement of him staying. Did you perceive any reaction for Pelham's promotion and Neal staying in place and hiring of Eric as outside linebackers coach? Those moves, what was the feedback you sent from recruits?
I think from recruits and coaches and everybody that were around that is in the the influencer decision-making type of camps were, without exception, positive. Guys that have known, you travel around Southern California or California with DP or the West, and people know who that guy is, and they know his pedigree, they know his character, they know his discipline, and the same of the guys that have been around. Chins was in about 50 something schools in a few days, and already killing it, for the next year. So, and Coach Neal, the same thing. We've had, that's the other thing of I think that the proudest thing in all this for me, and I'm not a very proud guy outwardly, but to have, Marcus Mariota, EFO, and then about 8 coaches that could be in a lot of other places stay here, that means a ton for this place, and it can do nothing but help in recruiting.
Eric Elkin.
Kind of along those lines, how did you handle the recruiting aspect of Nick's retirement? He said all along that it was just a conversation between his family and you, and no one else knew about it. So when he's out on the road recruiting throughout the entire fall, and then that announcement comes out, how did recruits respond to that, and how did you get in front of that?
Well, the discussion kind of came place after, the fall recruiting phase, and so that part was different. There was really only a few days. I'm trying to remember exactly the timing of everything, but there was nobody who was, misled or anything. And that's what's always kind of a sensitive subject at this time of year. And I guarantee tomorrow and the next day you'll look around the country and so-and-so coach is going to go to the NFL and such is going to move over here. It's just kind of the way that things happen this time of year. But again, we were as honest and forthright at the time as we could be.
Aaron Pinterest.
Coach, on paper it would appear that the offensive linemen you signed are maybe 20 to 30 pounds heavier than most of the high school offensive linemen you signed in the past few years. Was that a conscious effort on your part to get bigger, or was that just a coincidence, just worked out that way, or what?
I think more of the latter. We want to be versatile up front. I think is the biggest key. We want 5 guys that can play 5 different positions, ideally. Because then you can put in, you can be interchangeable. You can get your best guy as the first substitute into the game, rather than your backup left tackle. He might be your 10th best offensive lineman if you have a backup right tackle, of down the line. But just trying to be more versatile. There were a couple of the guys that we were recruiting that were more in the 275-ish. Another guy was about 285-ish range. That you project to be able to develop. So I think it's just more of a law of averages thing happened.
Jerry Thompson.
Yeah, Coach, with someone's exposure now, recruiting the players, probably aren't too many sleepers, so to speak, anymore, Igor Olshansky's or anything, but are there a couple guys here that maybe, a couple players that, as a coaching staff, you kind of think, wow, how come that guy wasn't more highly recruited? We really got one here that was maybe not so highly evaluated by some other coaching staffs. Because that happened very, very often, that there's some that you think you rate a lot higher than some of the other staff.
I don't know. I'm trying to look down. The guy, I think from the closest thing to that would have been Austin Malawata had he stayed committed to the place he was committed to before, just because of his, the circumstances of his moving to the United States 10 months ago. And that's obviously unique. The rest of these guys, for the most part, were pretty highly recruited guys. So I guess not too many in this class, but not impossible still.
Jake Zivin.
Mark, Royce seems to be a bigger back than who you guys have had in the program in the past years, except maybe for Trey Carson, who's only here for a year. Did you want to go out and get a bigger back, and how do you see having a bigger guy in the system changing things at all?
Yeah, we want to get, I guess we'd like to talk about the biggest, fastest, great version of, the ideal person, the ideal character and attitude that those guys bring to the table, and he's moving that direction. He's a big physical dude, runs heavy, but then still has the skill set to run out of the backfield and catch the football, to be a great returner, and protect and do some of the things that our guys do. But having a little bit more of a thumper absolutely can can help you in goal line situations, short yardage situations, and just being a heavy changeup.
Ryan?
Mark, did you experience any deja vu recruiting Morgan, just with how it developed, and how much will being around Marcus for a year help his development?
Yes, and a ton. It was funny when I first went to watch him, and no disrespect to anybody, I didn't know what either one of these guys looked like, just their facially. And so I went and watched these guys practice, and I assumed that he was the guy who was the elder statesman of the guys, and the guys that was being recruited at that time. And then it just kind of went from there. He came to camp and sat behind a great player in Jared Goff, who's obviously had a great first year at Cal from a statistical standpoint, he's a very conscientious guy, very smart guy, very competitive guy, and he's really excited to come in and work with and for Marcus, and be around a guy like that.
Do you see recruits maybe trying to commit earlier in the process in the previous years, and does that change the way you do things?
It won't change the way we do things from a logistical process standpoint and how we evaluate guys. We might have to, as we've finished off this class, we've certainly tried to gone out and see more 2015 guys playing basketball or wrestling or whatever they're doing this time of year. But our process of evaluation of seeing guys of everything we do behind the scenes cannot and will not change. And we're going to miss on a couple guys because of that, and we are more than willing to do that.
Any more questions? Up in the front, Andrew.
What is the most important part of that process? I know you say it's like 8 steps, but is there a linchpin of that that's the highest priority?
All 8, because of again, just if the more stuff that we know up front that we can kind of eliminate and take off the table, the better chance you're increasing your odds of having that end product be exactly what you envision 5, 50, 60 years from now, and so that can't be compromised.
And when did that start? Was that something when you came to Oregon? That process was already.
It's kind of evolved. We started doing this my first year here, Chip's first year here, and it's just changed. There's a couple things added, a couple things that we've changed, but we're basically just trying to quality control as much as we can up front, and keep tweaking that process. It's an imperfect business, but we're trying to push toward the perfect side.
Handful of guys announced today. A couple picked Oregon, a couple didn't. Did you know what was coming on those guys? Were you watching on TV for any of those to find out?
I think I watched. Who did I watch? Did I watch anybody? Yeah, I saw Matrell right before we went out to work out with our guys. But again, like we were talking about a little bit earlier, I felt pretty good felt fairly confident about those guys. But things happen. Every year, look around the country and guys flip and jump ship, and that has become again the big splash deal. But we talked about this again. If these guys that are on the sheet of paper had flipped, there'd be a lot of questions in my mind about mankind, and so that was good.
Jake Zivin in the back.
Mark, since you guys said the recruiting, we haven't been able to talk to you about Don Pelham, about hiring Don Pelham. I know it happened a few weeks ago, but why Don? Why was the decision made to hire Don?
He's a great person and a great coach. In the most simplistic of forms, I think he's a guy that has been around, so to speak, of different systems, different management styles, and every time that he's been empowered, he's been excellent. When he's been in front of the team, he's been excellent. When he's been in front of the unit, he's been excellent. And one thing that always caught my eyes, his office was kind of L-shaped across the corner from mine over in the other building, and every single day his guys were there early for the special teams meeting, before the special teams meeting for their position meeting. All their stuff was lined up, backpacks all lined up, papers out, notebook in, meeting. They'd all come out, put them back in there, run into the special teams meeting, come out, go back in, meet, come back out, put their backpack on, run down and go outside. It was like clockwork. And I go, how come everybody doesn't do that? And he goes, I'm not in charge of everybody. And that kind of stuff multiplied out, you know, the continuity piece is a bonus. You know, like I said at the time of his hiring, I think he's the best guy for the job, and he's the right guy for the job. And you know, the neat part about it is we have 4 great coaches in that room that will all work with and for each other and for that unit and for this team, probably most importantly. And really excited about Chins as well.
Stephen Alexander.
Mark, can you tell us what the 8 characteristics or 8 checkpoints you look for are?
No. No, it's you know, it's more or less just trying to not make exceptions for you know, as many of the off-field things that you know you can try to find out about, and different things that we try to learn about guys, whether it's social media or things in and around school, or just things that you try to not make an exception for.
Eric Elkin.
Mark, you mentioned wanting one more big guy. Not sure if you meant specifically size or just a big name, big recruit.
No.
Not sure how much you're able to talk about it, but a lot of Duck fans were curious today about Juju Smith. How big of a miss did that feel like? And with USC coming off the sanctions, how much more of a presence do you feel them in the recruiting landscape now?
We recruited against a bunch of guys, them included, and you know, you won some, you lost some, but again, we're really happy about these guys, and I'm sure my wife sits around every day wishing she married George Clooney or Brad Pitt or somebody else, and she moved on, and we will too.
Any other questions? Can't follow up that.